What do you think of Michael Jackson?
He liked hanging out with children because he had a very innocent imagination.
Would any parent leave their child with someone for a week?
The relationship he had with young kids is extremely unusual by anyone's standards.
Would you still listen to your favorite music if you knew that they are pedophiles?
I think it's really interesting that Macaulay Culkin denies anything happening.
He did seem to change Charles quite a lot in the documentary. He went from one kid to another.
Society can say whatever they want to say.
I do believe it. I believe he did it.
I don't think I could answer that.
Hi YouTube, what's up? My name is Zane and this is Provocative TV. For decades, Michael Jackson has been called the king of pop and he's one of the biggest superstars of all time. But his legacy has been called into question after a controversial documentary, Leaving Neverland. So today we're going to talk to people about Michael Jackson and the controversial film. And before we get started, thumbs up for the video, subscribe below and let's get started.
Millie, and I'm from King's Cross. I'm a student. I do biomed at the University of Westminster.
Today we are going to talk about Michael Jackson. What do you think of Michael Jackson? Do you like him? Do you like his music?
I really do like Michael Jackson. Like when he died, like a couple years after, I really got into like how he changed his face a lot because of his dad, so I found that side of him really interesting. And I didn't really know anything about like the sexual assault or anything. Like I know my mum didn't like him for that reason, but I kind of didn't pay attention to that. I didn't look into that. I kind of looked into his like ailments and like why he changed his face, things like that. I thought that was super interesting until recently when I watched the documentary. And I feel like slightly it's all come out now because like there's no way for him to defend himself, so people feel more confident, which is completely fine. Like I completely understand that, but I feel like it's kind of like word against word, but I do believe it. I believe he did it. I think now all the pictures have come out of like the Neverland, like all of the artwork he had, it just seems so suspicious, and like I don't see a reason why the victims would lie. I think they just feel more comfortable talking about it now, because I feel like before they might have been like scared of a ginormous lawsuit, because obviously he was like super rich and like his whole family.
My name is Royden Turner and I'm originally from South Africa, although I live in the UK now. I'm actually a film director. Michael Jackson is a childhood hero in terms of music and growing up with that sort of within that time period of pop culture. I haven't seen the documentary and look forward to seeing it just to, you know, answer a lot of very puzzling questions about this character and how bad is the situation and were these atrocities linked to him or not. Overall, there's some great concern that there were some things around him with children and so forth. So if the evidence is true, that would be alarming. You know, I think the broader question for me is, how did those parents allow it in the first place? You know, why weren't they aware? If, you know, they're not. There seem to be more questions than answers right now for me.
Do you think it was a good idea for these victims to speak out after so many years?
Absolutely. I do believe that people under sort of mental stress or mental strain, in many cases, would keep a lot of this information guarded, because if it's not true, conversely, well then it can be addressed at the same time as well, and they need to be held accountable if it's a lie. And if people are going to bring out information early or late, it shouldn't make a difference.
Lindsay from London. I'm a stage manager. In general, yes, I think Michael Jackson is a huge pop icon. His dancing, his music. I mean, I grew up listening to him. Yeah, I think he's an absolute superstar. I'm a little bit on the fence. It's a bit of a grey area for me because having not seen it yet, I feel like everybody has their opinion about him, but no one really knows. No one was really there, but obviously we can only go by their story. Michael is now dead, so you can't ask him, and he can't defend his side of the story. So I find it hard to believe that it went as far as that. I think he liked hanging out with children because he had a very innocent imagination and was still a bit of a child himself. So I think he liked hanging out with kids, so maybe he went over the boundaries a little bit. But to him, I think he thought it was incredibly normal. Whereas in society today, especially, anything that goes over the line is probably classed as abuse. So I don't know.
I'm James, I'm just from outside London. I work in publishing. He's a pop artist first and foremost. Some of his personal life You know, in the public eye, there's been some questionable things. As an artist, yeah, of course.
Do you like his music?
Yeah, he's not my favourite, but you know, there's obviously some songs out there that I've enjoyed over the years. Yeah, these things have to be taken extremely seriously, more now than ever, I think, given the historic abuse that's actually gone on in the UK with people like Jimmy Savile being in the news only a few years ago. The rumours around that had been circulating for a long time. It takes time, and then when the evidence comes out...
Do you think it was a good thing for them to speak out after all these years?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if something like that's happened to somebody, it's extremely important that it's spoken about.
I'm Raj, I'm from London, work in IT. Personally, I think he's done a lot in terms of music. As an artist and performer, he's great. Obviously, his career was mainly in the public eye. I can't comment on him personally and what his behaviours are, but what's coming out, as far as I know, in the tabloids and the news, that he has done certain things to children. I feel by watching that documentary on him, he did seem to change Charles quite a lot in the documentary. He went from one kid to another, and two out of the four children, without mentioning names, came in, defended him in the actual court hearing. So it feels like there was a balance there, or agreement there struck. Don't know how much money was involved undercover, or even that he may have been innocent and the other two may be just plotting for money.
Don't you think it was weird that parents didn't know what happened, that Michael Jackson spent so much time together with children?
Yeah, it's weird because the parents actually built a trust with Michael Jackson, and that bond happened as Michael Jackson's very childlike behaviour obviously appealing to these parents, making them gain trust in these parents, saying that the child is safe.
Do you think it affected as well that Michael Jackson gave luxury presents to the parents, a car, house, money?
It would do, because obviously I feel like he was maybe buying the children of them. Obviously buying gifts to someone is like trying to build up trust with that person, saying, okay, look, I've got all of these items, I can give you this, I can give you that.
I think the kids didn't see it as abuse because they genuinely loved him. Like, even in the documentary, you can still see that they have genuine love for Michael Jackson. And I think the kids wouldn't then go to the family and be like, oh, this happened, because they wouldn't see it as like an issue, and it was like a secret between them and Michael, so it made them feel special, which is why they kept like going back to it. And it was interesting when like he changed boys and they were all like a bit jealous, so I think that's why the family didn't know. However, I do think it's really irresponsible of the family to leave like the children like there while they go off to different states, or like let him share beds. Like, I don't know if I would let my kids do that, but they might have been like a bit starstruck and be like, oh, this might get us closer to the Jacksons. So I think that's maybe their mindset, but I do think it was irresponsible of them.
As a parent myself, I have a 12-year-old boy. I just can't imagine any parent leaving their child with someone for a week. I understand obviously he's a celebrity, so you expect perhaps something different in terms of the outcome of their safety not being in question. I imagine that's the only thing I can think of as to what their thoughts were. But ultimately, would any parent leave their child with someone for a week without really knowing anything about them, other than the fact that they're a celebrity and a singer? So to answer your question, yes, disturbing and puzzling from the start, I think, in terms of just leaving the kids with essentially a complete stranger other than his celebrity status.
Yeah, I think it's extremely odd. The way I see it is obviously, yeah, he did a lot of good for charity, but the relationship he had with young kids is extremely unusual by anyone's standards. The thing is because he had life in the public eye, there's almost that propensity to think, well, he lives a public life. If anything was going on, we'd already know about it. So of course he's not guilty. But of course, living that kind of lifestyle is very unusual.
Could Michael Jackson use these children for so long if no one would support him or hide what he's doing?
I think his team definitely knew, because they would like change hotel rooms, so they were far away from the family. I do think people knew about it. I just didn't think they would want to speak.
They were scared.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a messed up situation, but people definitely knew. But I think it's really interesting that like Macaulay Culkin like denies anything happening. So I don't know like what that situation is, but I can imagine him not wanting to admit anything. Like he might not have accepted it. It might have like been blocked out in his memory because obviously it's not a pleasant thing to remember.
I would imagine so. I think anyone in these circumstances that they've been able to hide something for so long, I think anyone would be able to get away with it. I think it's whenever these sort of suspicions and rumours come out, it always sort of makes you question as to how they've hidden it all for how long and so forth. So the term celebrity or being a celebrity has, allowed this to be hidden if it is true, because there's so many other wonders around it. Who has their own playground in their back garden? Who has their own, theme park, should I say, in their background? So it does sort of allow, I would imagine, some people to look the other way because he is an eccentric character in the first place. It's not the average person that has a theme park in their back garden. So there's that as well that sort of brings into question. As I said from the start, I'm not sure if it is or isn't true, but if it is, it needs to be definitely brought to light.
When someone's in like a position of power, especially in such a position as he was, like self-branded king of pop, a lot of these kids maybe came from working class backgrounds, weren't necessarily in a position where they could speak out, knew how to articulate those concerns. And of course, going up a giant like Michael Jackson, who's got a great legal team, I'm guessing, how are you supposed to take those thoughts forward and be taken as seriously? So again, it's an abuse of the position of power, isn't it? I think that's possibly why people didn't come forward earlier.
They're saying that he supported him out of kind of his heart, but his motives may have been different, because obviously he's built a bond with a child, and then he's left them and then gone back to them, and then left them again and gone back to them. So it's kind of yo-yoing with their lives at the moment. That feels a bit strange to me. You either be there or not be there.
Would you still listen to your favorite music if you knew that they are pedophiles?
If it was absolutely concrete evidence and they were, charged with something like that, then probably not. No, but I will still listen to Michael Jackson because I personally don't know if he did it or not, and I still think of him as a great music legend.
I think you can view an artist as something other than their personality. Like with XXXTentacion, like he was a horrible person, but I know a lot of people like him for his music and his creative talent, and that they just view him for his songs rather than him as a person. So I think a lot of people would do that, and I think I'm conflicted inside. Like I wouldn't listen to R. Kelly anymore. Like I just feel like guilty almost, like supporting that. So I don't know if I would personally, but I can understand if someone would.
That's an interesting question, because I can separate head from heart in terms of loving the track and not loving the person, because there are all sorts of rebels associated with all sorts of music. In this case, I probably could, because the music I associate with experiences that I've had as opposed to what experiences he's had. Do you know what I mean? A particular song takes me to a memory or place of where I was, not where that artist was, and what they've gone to do. In the same way, artists that have gone and committed suicide, I don't agree with suicide, doesn't mean that I'm going to stop listening to their music.
I wouldn't actively put it onto like my iPod or my radio as such. If it's just something playing in the background in a restaurant, I wouldn't go out and say, look, don't put it on. So
now Michael Jackson, do you have different feelings after watching this movie?
In a certain respect, I do see what's coming out in the media, and I wouldn't actively put something on of his. But on the other hand, it's stuff I've grown up with as well. So there may be an occasion where you go to a birthday party and you hear these songs and you still may dance to it because you've grown up with that and you have a connection with that.
How do you feel now when you hear Michael Jackson's song?
Well, I actually haven't listened to him recently at all. It has put me off listening to his music, yeah, definitely.
Should these guys forgive their parents? What do you think?
I think, that's entirely up to them, but I think forgiveness starts and ends, has to start with them in terms of forgiving themselves and in terms of them being so young at the time. So if it is true, it shouldn't be with them, and then it's down to how much of a relationship, I guess, they have with their parents.
I think it depends because they wanted it just as much. I think they wanted it more, like to spend time with him. But I don't know how they feel looking back now, but I think they probably do have some questions for their parents, like why would you like let me go? So I reckon they have some kind of inner conflict about that, but I'm not entirely sure.
I don't think I could answer that because I think families internally go through all kinds of problems. Every family faces its difficulties, but yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult one. I couldn't answer that, but of course, you know, internally, families, as I say, go through all kinds of issues, but that's probably one for them to make peace with when the time is right. If the time's right.
What do you think, what would have happened to his music if Michael Jackson was found guilty in late 80s, early 90s when he was a god to everyone?
Oh, I think a lot of people would have been in denial, but I think his career would have crashed. Like he would have definitely gone to prison, like fully. And I think that would have been it for Michael Jackson. I think he would have turned into like an O.J. Simpson kind of character. So like people don't really love him for his career anymore. They just talk about the case. And I think that's a similar thing that would have happened.
He was such a king. I think it obviously would have completely destroyed his reputation. I think that the infrastructure and machine around that would have collapsed. So we wouldn't even heard it in the first place because the producers, the companies endorsing his music wouldn't have endorsed it. So I don't think we would have even heard the music, never mind it's been successful or not successful, because who would want to work with someone that behaved in that way towards children? So
My name is Aramatu. I'm from Ivory Coast, but I live in London now. I'm a model, so I'm studying assistant to St. Martin. Well, I don't really know what is happening, but in terms of the media, is everywhere in the news, Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, all the Telegram, putting everywhere that he had abusing people. But he's not here to defend himself. People that are here, they say that it happened. Which side do you take to? People love him, but he's not here to defend himself. So society can say whatever they want to say. I don't know what to say about this because if he's here, he can like, oh yes, I did that, or he's gonna deny that. If he's not here, also, it's the other way. It's like a hand. You have to balance out who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth.
Tom, I'm from London. I'm a cabinet maker by trade, like a finer carpenter. I think the guy's a hero. I think I absolutely love his music. I mean, I don't know him as a person. Obviously, I never met him, but I think it's wrong the way he's been portrayed as, I don't know, as this monster. Because at the end of the day, like, he's gone now, and they keep bringing this thing up about him, and I think it's unfair because he hasn't got a leg to stand on.